This Big 12 Hoops opening games recap edition of the College Experience, part of the Sports Gambling Podcast Network, is brought to you by Bet365. Bet365 is offering new users a $1,000 risk-free bet. Sign up today at sportsgamblingpodcast.com/bet365. We're also brought to you by Hall of Fame Bets, a sports betting research platform for parlays, props, and game lines. Download the Hall of Fame Bets app or visit hofbets.com. Code SGPN to get 50% off your first month and start making smarter bets today. We're also brought to you by Game Time. Game Time is the last-minute tickets, lowest price guaranteed. Use that promo code CFBX for $20 off for your first purchase today. Welcome, everybody, back to the College Experience, the Big 12 College Experience, part of the Sports Gambling Podcast Network. Basketball season is here. The crossover time is here. We got football. We just go check out our Big 12 game of the week between the West Virginia Mountaineers, Oklahoma Sooners. Tomorrow, we're picking Week 11. We're already in Week 11, but we had to sneak in. We had to wedge in a little bit of a nice little Big 12 basketball episode here to recap the openers and look ahead to what is going to be a loaded slate this weekend, especially on Friday night, including some spotlight games in the Big 12, the best conference in America for hoops. If you're wondering who you're listening to, I am Moneyline Mac, a.k.a. the former video coordinator for Bob Huggins and Frank Barden. And joining me each and every episode on the Big 12 College Experience, he was born in Provo, Utah. Go Cougs. He's got family names Iowa. Go Cyclones. And he lives in Morgantown, West Virginia. Rambling Rush. Basketball season's here, brother.
It is here, and I know we did the Oklahoma show yesterday. I want to make this clear because the camera's not getting this. I'm wearing this for Troy, the Nationals winning their World Series. This is not intended to be Oklahoma shirt. We'll replace it for the Ryan and Rush show later today. I also want to say as well, that's nice can of Coke there, Troy. We're gonna need to get a new background here from Cameron Kerr for basketball season. And like we promised Andy Mitz, we need to flip that OU logo upside down.
Yes, indeed. We got to get a court. He's working on it behind the scenes, but we had to wedge this in, whether we got a football field or basketball court. We'll get it fixed. But third man in the box. Everybody knows him from his ties to his family civil wars in the cities of Stillwater, Norman, Oklahoma, Waco, Texas. He's got his Baylor Bears shirt on right now. Sick 'em, baby. He is the Big 12 guru. They are 1-0. Troy Chewning. What is up, man? How are you?
So now we get into the part of the season where everybody thinks we do football and basketball crossover, and I still got NHL hockey games to go to three times a week. The bonus bet of the day is very, very easy, by the way. Hopefully there's more than one person watching this, but the Panthers are playing in D.C., so Carter Verhaeghe, first, last, anytime goal. Just go ahead and load up on Carter. I think he scored 8 goals in his last 6 games at Capital One, so looking to keep that.
You can always rely on Troy for a NHL parlay or a tennis parlay or maybe Chinese checkers if they offer some odds.
I mean, in the middle of COVID, I was watching Romanian marble racing on YouTube, and they had like a Venmo black market betting thing going on. It was fucking hilarious.
That's awesome.
No doubt. All right, real quick. Let's the Big 12 finished. The only team that has not played is Texas Tech. So through 14 games, Big 12 finishes 11-2 in the openers. The only loser, Oklahoma State and the Kansas State Wildcats. But let's start with the headline game last night. Baylor Bears get it done 88-82. Jacoby Walter, the freshman, goes for 28. Monster night. Comeback win. Troy, this is your team. Your mother went to the Baylor Bears. That was her attended university. What is the vibe right now coming out of that the opener at the Pentagon last night? Yeah, by the way, that place was rocking. That was great.
Yeah, it's a lot. If they used to play a preseason tournament down in the Wide World of Sports down in Orlando, and it's kind of the same thing, like one level of seats and then a little upstairs area that's just kind of like a standing room and whatnot. That place was significantly louder than the Wide World of Sports ever was, though. I mean,
yes.
And most of them weren't, Baylor or Auburn fans. They were just local people that were like, hey, look, good basketball. Let's go watch, which always awesome to have in any kind of town that supports whoever's playing just because the sport's going on. I mean, I would do the same thing if I was there. Mm-hmm. So a lot of respect, but they did come out a little wonky, I guess. I mean, we were messaging in the first half of the game and Ryan was like, how many friggin' turnovers do they have? 15 already? And I was like, 11, pretty much. But they turn it around. They only finished the game with 15 total turnovers. So only 4 in the second half. It looked like they, it's the first game. They're still kind of learning to play with one another. But the only difference I see, I mean, between the fact that Jacoby Walter is longer and probably just going to be more open at the college level, between him and Keontae George, Jacoby Walter wants to score 25 points a game. And even if he ever goes cold and whatnot, that's not going to deter him from continuing to shoot or continuing to drive and distribute and stuff. But man, he looks like almost like Michael Jordan in terms of the way that he jumps high on his jump shot and actually, doesn't just try to like get the shot off in rhythm. He jumps as hard as he can every time he takes a shot. Kind of looks like he floats up in the air and gets extra half second where everything is open, even if you can test it. It's going to be dangerous trying to stop him. I mean, to put up 28 in your first college basketball game, a neutral site, trailing at halftime, being the underdog against, I think Auburn's a pretty good team. I mean, we were talking about it before the show. There's no lead is safe with Auburn, whether they're up 10 or they're down 10. Anything can happen with Bruce Pearl, but they did turn on the physicality there for the last 7 or 8 minutes of the game. The between Nunn and Ray J. Dennis, their guard defense should be pretty dang good, and it didn't look like that for the first 20 minutes. And then it just kind of the intensity picked up. And I mean, Scott Drew's just a great basketball coach, and you kind of expect that at the end of a close game for Scott Drew's team to get it done. And I mean, that's probably the biggest win so far for the league. I mean,
by far,
a couple of days of games. Yeah. I don't know. I mean, Texas Tech against Texas A&M Commerce could be a barn burner, but
Yeah, and yeah, no doubt. And looking ahead, Troy, just for Baylor, they'll take on John Brown. So bring your library, I guess, to that game.
Yeah, I was going to say you got to look out between James Madison and John Jay University. John Brown might be trying to jump in. Hey, we signed documents too.
But from there, in a couple of weeks, they'll go to New York. They got a NTE or early season tournament, the NIT tip off with Oregon State, Florida, and Pitt. And then it really gets hard for their non-con schedule late or mid-December with Seton Hall, Michigan State, and Duke will be at the Garden. So
we'll be at the Garden for the Duke game. We'll be at the Garden for the Duke game, baby.
Nice.
Rush, what was your takeaway from this good Baylor comeback?
Scott Drew does it again. I mean, went on a 22-10 run in the last 8 minutes to win the game. And I mean, hey, you ended up winning by 2 possessions as well. Whether we like it or not, former Mountaineer Jalen Bridges, great game from him. Actually really stepped up and showed that kind of the concerns we had here at West Virginia and the concerns last season with him at Baylor. He's kind of trying to put that all behind him and really step up and prove to kind of either be that number 1 or number 2 guy that he can be leaned on. So, hey, great night for the Baylor Bears. I think there's a lot of truth to what you said to start the season, Ryan, is the transfer portal got him like they do a lot of other schools, but these guys that got brought in might be even better. You just got to give them time to gel and mesh. And hey, when you end a game with a 22-10 run in the last 8 minutes, I mean, that really can propel you forward. And, you got something to work with. It's Baylor's back. So my dark horse in football wasn't good, but maybe it gave energy for the basketball team there, Troy.
I couldn't stop laughing when they were talking about Bridges as the glue guy, because the West Virginia guy that picked Baylor's football team is now glue. The dark horse has been turned to glue, but the West Virginia transfer is now the glue guy for Baylor.
Oh man, it's Spider-Man.
Everybody's pointing at each other.
Yeah, exactly.
Overall, good win for the Baylor Bears. Much needed for this league because on opening night, unfortunately, K-State went out west to Vegas, and they kind of got dominated. I mean, they definitely did not. They're work in progress right now. Losing Marquise Noel, losing Keontae Johnson. What were you guys' takeaway? Troy, I'll start with you. What was your takeaway in this? Felt like a layup line for USC. They really missed Tomlin, who just got recently arrested and suspended. They're thin up front right now,
and they kind of pulled that win off pretty easily without even Bronny. So
yeah,
I think USC might be a bit more dangerous than we gave them credit for coming into the season. But like we were talking about before the show, pretty much anybody that's inside of that top 25 this year, I really don't see there being one team that's just like going to whip it out and be the wire to wire best team or anything like that throughout this year. There's just too much movement in the sports now that it's going to take time for everyone to gel. It's going to take time for a lot of these teams. I mean, minus basically FAU, it's going to take time for everyone to know who their new teammates and all that is. And by the time we conference play, those non-con games aren't going to mean nearly as much. I mean, you can look back and say something like Baylor beat Auburn, but Auburn's liable to, compete for the SEC title. And if they replay again, it could be a completely different game. So it really is a lot like what we were dealing with specifically in the Big 12 for football. There's going to be a logjam for the whole year throughout the entire top 20. And pretty much any night, any of those teams are going to be able to beat somebody.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think the good news about playing in the Big 12, kind of what you were alluding to, Troy, is the fact that if you get Big 12 wins in basketball, it kind of takes care of like 2 to 3 non-con losses or tough games that you might have had. And, we know that the committee really takes, those conference games and the games closer to the tournament than these games itself. I think with Kansas State, everything you were saying, Ryan, with, players being out and getting used to a new identity in this team. And what is it projectedly supposed to be a good USC basketball game and is projected to be do well this season. And like you said, Bronny wasn't even in the game. This USC team kind of reminds me a little bit, maybe I'm wrong here, but the OJ Mayo team back in the late 2000s. I don't know why. I just kind of had glimpses of that. But hey, this it sounds weird. I was telling you guys before the show, I feel like I could see this actually being a rematch and like the round of 32, or even maybe to open the season like an 8-9 game, and Kansas State, wins the game because they're meshing right at that time to move on. It's going to be like a lot of these teams. I mean, West Virginia behind me, there's a lot to work on, a lot to figure out, especially before Big 12 play. But if there's a time to do it, it's the time now. And, I don't think this loss is really that big of a deal against Kansas State. They'll figure it out.
I think the biggest thing that stuck out to me about K-State is watching Arthur Kaluma go 0-5 from the three-point line. I mean, if he makes 2 of those shots, then, we get into a foul situation and way more pressure. And, college kids don't always handle that as well at the end of the game. So, I mean, it's not a worrisome loss to me. I think USC is a good enough team that I wish it would have been a little bit closer, but again, Jerome Tang probably going to get the guys rolling pretty well. I wouldn't assume it takes super long, and I wouldn't put too much weight into the loss, meaning Kansas State might not be like a top 5 team in the league. I still think they'll round into form.
Yeah, I mean, they're going to have plenty more opportunities. They got Providence in their early season tournament. They also got Villanova, LSU, and Nebraska. So plenty of times, and Wichita State. So plenty of times to get marquee wins. To take it a step further with Kaluma, he was 1 of 11 from the field, and you add Tyler Perry in there too, the point guard transfer from North Texas. So combined with those two, those are supposed to be their 2 studs. You go 6 of 29. It's going to be hard to win a top 25 game. We'll dive into the rest of the Big 12 on the other side because we got to get paid. We're brought to you by Bet365 because it's the world's favorite sports book, trusted by over 88 million players worldwide. Prop sides, totals, live betting. Bet365 has everything you need covered. And if you like boosts, you're going to love Bet365. Like a 30% boost on your NFL same-game parlay. Plus, they even have an early payout if your team goes up 17 points. Sign up today and choose from the bonus offer either that's a $1,000 first bet safety net or bet 5 to get $150 in bonus bets. Just head over to sportsgamblingpodcast.com/bet365, sportsgamblingpodcast.com/365. If you got a problem, call 1-800-GAMBLER. All righty, we're back. All right, so unfortunately, K-State was a loser. The other big loser, and they were the big winner in football on Saturday, Oklahoma State loses to Abilene Christian. Quite frankly, trailed the whole game. Tried to have a miracle comeback, but ran out of gas at the end. This is not good for Mike Boynton. This is not the start you needed.
Mm-hmm.
This is 3 straight years they have lost a bye game. Whether it was in the first week of the season, the second week of the season, last year was Southern Illinois. A couple years ago it was Oakland. This can't happen, man. You can't. This is not the start they needed. Troy, I know you watched this game from start to finish. Disappointing as a Cowboy fan to watch him go 5 of 23 once again from beyond the arc.
Unless you were on Abilene Christian, which I don't know. I'm pretty sure you were too, right, Ryan?
Yeah,
we were all over Abilene Christian.
I was, but I mean, I root for the Big 12 too, so it's my bet won, but yeah.
Of course, but the preview we did when we were talking about some of the coaching in the Big 12 and just kind of the consensus that Mike Boynton is definitely not like the greatest fit for Oklahoma State and to get them going forward. And you can see that just not being prepared right off the bat. Not being prepared or overlooking teams on a consistent basis. You would think playing in the Big 12, you get used to not overlooking anybody, and still it continues to happen. I think he's just not the right guy for the job. I would be willing to put some kind of wager down that he could be the first coach fired. It's definitely in the Big 12, but they just didn't really look like they knew what they wanted to do or had anybody on the floor that was willing to take over and just make it their game or anything like that. Abilene Christian's pretty good, but they shouldn't be beating Oklahoma State. Oklahoma State should not be losing this game. And it was just easy to see too, when everybody else is calling it as a possible loss, just because that the coach is overlooking teams in the past and continues to obviously do so. Mm-hmm. It's not a good look. Not a good look for the Pokes. Let's concentrate on Olive Garden and not worry about Mike Boynton.
Rush, what was your takeaway from this one, man?
Yeah, not a great loss when you do this historically. I know, and we'll talk about this in a second. There were concerns from the West Virginia side of things that we were going to drop to Missouri State, a team that's had success against bigger teams. But when it's more based off kind of a new head coach and a lot going on, not based off of history, you see it, it doesn't come to fruition, right? We've seen this happen to Oklahoma State many times. So that's why a lot of us were on it and we're not surprised by it. And I definitely agree with, I think it was you that said it. Actually, maybe it was both of you when we were talking about when we did our show with Colby, with Boynton, is I don't think that it's Boynton. Obviously, his first time being a head coach is here at Oklahoma State. And I don't think anyone doubts his coaching abilities. Of course, he has stuff he needs to work on. But I think it's more that you keep saying, Ryan, his fit. And you kind of start to see that. And we're only one game in. And it's kind of like, yeah, this just may not work out. He may need to just kind of go somewhere else, start as a head coach, maybe at a smaller school, or get back in the assistant, get some mentorship back in him, and then be good to go. And I think he has a place in the coaching industry, of course, but this just doesn't feel like it's it. To give a little benefit of the doubt, I mean, we know what the NCAA has done to this program historically, while letting other schools like Kansas off. And I do think that does play an effect. And I think you do have to give the benefit of the doubt to Mike Boynton in that situation. And also to Abilene Christian. Don't forget, this is a team that beat Texas in the round of 64 2 years ago. Now, probably a different team, transfer portal and all that stuff. But I mean, at least a program that, has somewhat of a history of beating a Big 12 school or other good schools too. But yeah, it's just kind of it's like, you did this again. It's like, all right, we'll see what kind of this non-con looks like, but maybe this is that year at Oklahoma State that we were talking about on the preview with Colby, that it's just like, you know what, this may just have to be a gut it out, kind of blow it up, start fresh. We're in the transfer portal era. We're in the NIL era. We can turn this around a lot quicker than we could in the past. Maybe we just kind of have to sacrifice a season. So we'll know the answer to that question here in a couple of weeks.
And the thing with Oklahoma State last year, midway through February, they were as hot as anybody in the league. They were a lock to make the tournament. They were 16-9, 7-5 in Big 12 play. They stumbled down the stretch against the Gauntlet, But they, even with a 5-game losing streak in the last 2 weeks of February, they were the 1 seed in the NIT, and they missed getting to the dance. And I think they still should have been. But the reason they didn't get to the dance was because they lost to Southern Illinois. That was the game that kept them out.
Yeah.
And I mean, Mike's teams will get better as the year goes on. He loses this game every year. But I mean, you can't keep losing it. That's why you're playing in the NIT versus the NCAA tournament. And it's just been a common theme over the last couple of years.
I mean, that loss is millions of dollars.
Oh yeah, he just doesn't seem like he's enough of a hard ass to be at a school like Oklahoma State where you're going to have to grind with a little bit less talent compared to the other schools in the league like Baylor and Kansas that are getting McDonald's All-Americans and whatnot.
Yep.
Like I mentioned on the preview, it's almost like Oklahoma and Oklahoma State should switch basketball coaches.
Yeah.
I would like somebody tougher than Porter Moser too, though. Somebody gritty like Gundy. They need a Gundy type personality in basketball.
Is there a chance that they could like teach Gunnar Gundy basketball fast enough and then just lock in another coach for the next 20 years or something like that?
As long as he wears a Zoe Ed shirt, let's go.
They could let Mike coach basketball.
I actually have a comment to that kind of relates to us, Ryan. And this isn't, we don't have to dive too deeply into this, but watch out next year. Bob Huggins going to another, like an Oklahoma State or a UCF,
UCF, yeah.
So yeah, I actually like UCF a lot for him. Like, especially, we don't have to go down this road. It's a conversation for another time, but there's those coaches out there that could fit that Oklahoma State type narrative to match that Gundy energy.
If Chris Beard had not taken Ole Miss, I would have said Chris Beard all freaking day.
Yeah,
somebody like that, somebody that's on a bounce back like Eddie Sutton was. Eddie Sutton got the sanctions at Kentucky, got that Oklahoma State brand going back. Oklahoma State looking ahead to what they got going. They got the Bonnies in a couple weeks out. Where's that at? That's another one in Brooklyn. There's 1,000 tournaments in Brooklyn or in Vegas. It's always one of the two. And then they will have a shot at Auburn or Notre Dame. They also always play Creighton in a couple weeks. So they've been in that Big East, Big 12 challenge. And they also they usually play Wichita, but I don't see Wichita on the schedule. So they can't drop another one. They need to probably beat at Creighton now. Oh my God, they got to return a game to Southern Illinois too. So yeah, no, this is going to be a tough schedule for Mike Boynton and company. Let's talk about a team that found a way to get a big dub despite being down to 8 scholarship players. That's our Mountaineers, baby. We don't make no excuses. I saw Vanderbilt was saying we were down 3 starters. That's why we lost to Presbyterian last night. Nobody gives a shit. Hey, nobody gives a shit that you're down players. Find a way to win. You're not a victim. Find a way, do your job, and find a way to win. And that's what the Mountaineers did. They beat a Missouri State team. That's a quality team. They bring back 10 players from last year. That's more than any players that we even have on our roster currently that are active. But hey, find a way to win, move on, 1-0. Rush, you were at the game. You were right there. What was your takeaways from win number 1 of the Josh Eilert era?
A couple takeaways, and we did a nice in-depth post show. Check it out on the Ryan and Rush show, the West Virginia side of things. Couple things is one, our friend of the show, Ethan Bach, a local journalist here in Morgantown. He had the funniest picture that explained it all. He took a picture of the West Virginia bench. There were 5 coaches, 4 players that couldn't play, and then 3 bench players that could play. It's like, oh, that sums it up about right. And it felt exactly like a COVID game, but there were fans in the stands. It's like, half the team got COVID or something. But this is going to be a team that no matter who West Virginia is playing, whether it's Monmouth this Friday or when Kansas comes here during the Big 12 schedule, is that you're going to have to make this a 20-minute basketball game. You're going to have to keep this game as close as you possibly can at halftime and then pull away in the second half. It's a team that's dealt with adversity all off season. It's a team that even their scrimmage game against George Mason, even their scrimmage game against Vanderbilt, right? That one went to overtime. The George Mason one, you had a Cook go down and deal with a health issue, and they still found a way to pull it out. This is going to be a team that, and maybe this is a good betting strategy to go. Don't bet anything West Virginia in the first half. Wait to see what it is and then figure it out in the second half to put your bets in. But that 12 minutes below is when this team decides, like, okay, it's time to go, guys. Like, let it loose. And they do it. And it was great to see. We had 4 players that were returners from last year's season. Of course, Kobe and Seth making the biggest impact. And weren't projected to be starters this year, but now have to be starters. And they did a good job, tough first half, but they figured it out. And then, we're going to need Pat Sumnick and JoJo Harris, of course, to step up. And we were talking about this, Ryan, that JoJo has stepped up tremendously from where he was last year and did make an impact in the game. And then the 4 new guys, Jesse Edwards, fantastic. Quinn Slazinski, fantastic. Ben Bree, he's never really played college basketball yet. He was injured at Florida State last year, but if he can come in while a couple guys need some rest, put in a couple minutes, that'll be great. And then, of course, Ofri from the Israeli national team. I mean, that guy might be 20 pounds undersized, but that guy has finesse. He can ball it up. The only thing he's missing is a yarmulke on his head, which would be even more awesome the way he's playing if he was able to keep that on his head. So, Ryan, I know we both really like this team a lot. Kerr will be eligible again in 8 games from now, which obviously will be fantastic, bringing him over from the Pac-12 champion Arizona team. Hopefully we can get Battle figured out with his waiver. We have the governor, Jim Justice, involved, and our attorney general, Patrick Morrissey. So usually when you get some pressure on the NCAA, they have a way of figuring things out. And then hopefully a Cook, figures out his health. If you could get those 3 guys back, like, seriously, watch out for this team. This is a very, very good West Virginia team. Josh Eilert did an excellent job in his first game, and congrats on his first win. Excellent substitution packages. And I think some of those substitution packages are, hey, let's see if this works. Like, and you got to do that this time of year. Like, and it did work for the most part. So he's figuring up that matchups. I mean, like I said, you can't take any games lightly, no matter if it's Monmouth or Kansas or anywhere in between. But it was a great start. Hey, they covered that 7.5 point spread at that nice little dunk at the end that I got on video. I don't think Josh Eilert was too happy about that, but it's like, all right, let him dunk. Let the crowd celebrate. You're good, Josh. I know that's the one time you can be a little unsportsmanlike. But anyway, it was a great night for the Mountaineers. The energy was great. It's good to be back in the Coliseum, and this team will be all right. Just game by game. That's all they can do.
Yeah, they really need to mirror the football team's strategy of, let's just grind it out and keep it as close as we can for as long as we can. And hopefully our talent takes over at the end a little bit. But, there's more games, so there's more time for the coach to actually experiment a bit. But when they get into league play, just kind of go with work and don't let the results dictate what you think is the right path to go.
Yeah.
They could really surprise a lot of people this year for sure.
And what's good from a scheduling standpoint is the Big 12 schedule actually really favors West Virginia, is because they're not doing the Big 12 true home and away doesn't exist anymore, because obviously we have 14 teams now. And so, you get to play UCF and Cincinnati. You don't have to go to the Fog. You don't have to go to Provo. You don't have to go to Texas Tech. You don't have to go to Baylor. And so the opportunity's there. It's time, Ryan, start getting a couple breaks our way. And I think the tides are turning.
Yeah,
I agree. To see a tide turn.
Yeah. This is the difference between West Virginia's program and Oklahoma State Monday night. Well, West Virginia finds a way, doesn't make excuses, finds a way to get the win. It's not pretty, but hey, down 3 out of 5 starters, down to 8 players, find a way to win, move on to Monmouth on Friday. They also got a tournament in a couple weeks against SMU or Wisconsin and Virginia. That'll be a tough test. St. John's, Pitt, Ohio State, UMass on the schedule. So no time to rest for these Mountaineers, but they'll keep getting better and better. This should be an NCAA tournament team by the end. They'll get better and better and find a way to get there.
And if Josh gets to the tournament, never mind at least win one game in the tournament, they have to offer him the job. Everything he's been through, you have to offer it to him.
No doubt. Completely agree. If you want to get over there, we got to get paid real quick. Go to the Coliseum for a game. Go over to Game Time, because buying tickets to your favorite event shouldn't be stressful. Game Time is the fastest, easiest way to get to a sports, music, or comedy theater near you. Killer last-minute deals. And it's great. They give you the flash deals, right? So you see your seats, no obstructed view. Forget planning months in advance. Game Time is the best last-minute tickets guaranteed. Snag those tickets without stress. Game Time. Download the Game Time app. Create an account. Code CFBX for get $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create that account at redeem code CFBX for $20 off. Download the Game Time today. Last-minute tickets, lowest price guaranteed. We're also brought to you by Hall of Fame Bets. Win bigger by betting smarter this NFL season with Hall of Fame Bets, the sports betting analytics platform for parlays, props, and game lines. Enter any parlay into the Hall of Fame Revolutionary Parlay Optimizer tool so you can break down each and every leg to see which one has the best value. Stop betting in the dark. Get over 30,000 users researching with Hall of Fame Bets to craft a more intelligent, data-driven parlay. Download the Hall of Fame Bets app or visit HOFBets.com. Code SGPN to get 50% off your first month today. Start researching, start winning with Hall of Fame Bets. And we're back on the Big 12 College Experience. Shout out to the chat, Nick. We'll give out a Big 12 parlay at the end of for Friday night. I know the lines have been released, but we'll pick out 3 games that we'll put together a parlay for Friday night. So we have a little Big 12 action. Real quick, I'm just going to run through the other games just because those are the 4 games that really had some meaning to it. Number 1 team in the country, Kansas, wins by about 50. They looked awesome. Houston looked awesome. They beat Monroe by 53. Yeah. Texas also rolled Incarnate Word. They won by about 40. Oklahoma actually rolled against Central Michigan. That's a good win. And I'll tell you what was an underrated win was UCF rolling FIU. I thought that was going to be a closer game. But shout out to the Shiny Knights. Iowa State rolls Green Bay by 40. BYU, the Cougars, win by 50 against Houston Christian. How bad is Houston Christian if BYU is winning by 50? TCU beats Southern by 35, and Cincinnati grinds out a 11-point win over Illinois, Chicago. That gets me into tonight. We got Texas Tech taking on Texas A&M Commerce. Texas Tech is laying 22. Feels like a good smash spot for Texas Tech, doesn't it? In game 1 of the Grant McCasland era.
Oh, yeah. I think Texas Tech handles this one pretty easily. What's the line at?
22. It was at 22 when we picked it. I think it might be up to 23. A&M Commerce played on Monday night, so short turnaround. Texas Tech should lay it on them. Tomorrow in the Big 12, we got Baylor taking on John Brown, whatever the hell you want to call him. TCU's taking on Peyton Manning, Omaha. 8 o'clock, and then Iowa State taking on Lindenwood. Should be an easy 3-0 night for the Big 12. If it's not, it's going to be a bad recap show. So let's look to Friday night because that's when we actually get some games to get out the games that really against bad teams. Oklahoma's taking on Mississippi Valley State. Texas is taking on Delaware State. Kansas taking on Manhattan. Those are bad teams. The Cincinnati's taking on Detroit. Detroit's not very good, but Cincinnati should roll. West Virginia's taking on Monmouth, which could be a little tricky, but this should be another game where West Virginia grinds that thing out and finds a way, as well as K-State in a bounce back against Bellarmine. But let's talk about the marquee matchup. At 7 o'clock on ACC Network, that filthy ACC Network, UCF, the very, very shiny Knights, they go down to Miami, and they beat Miami last year. What are your thoughts on this game, guys? You think UCF has a chance to pull off the stunner once again against the Hurricanes from Miami?
It sure seems like it. The Jim Larinaga coaching strategy of, we want to get better as the year goes on, that kind of plays into the chance that UCF has. I think they played pretty well in their first game. I wouldn't be surprised to see UCF win this one straight up. That wouldn't be a big shock to me. I will say, even the Kansas State coming off of a loss, I think there's a little juice to Bellarmine in that game.
Bellarmine?
The old Knights.
Yeah.
0-1 against Florida Southern College.
Russ, what do you think of UCF in that impressive opener? Now they're taking on the big Miami school.
Yeah, I mean, we even brought it up on this show, but I'm sure Johnny Dawkins is a little tired of people imagining other coaches in his current role. And I think if you figured this game out, especially doing it 2 years in a row, watch out. This UCF team might not be too bad, and this basketball team might follow suit of the football team where, it takes a second to get going. I mean, they are one of the newest universities in the country, but now with the Big 12 brand behind their basketball team and in Orlando and their location, especially in the wintertime. I mean, football, it's kind of that crossover, but basketball being in the wintertime, this is a good statement game for UCF and the ability to say, hey, we're part of this Florida basketball scene too. Obviously, Jim Larranaga can never count him out, but you are right that we saw it at George Mason. Of course, we see it at Miami. There's always something about his teams later in the season, and you kind of use that non-conference to figure things out. So I do think this is going to mean a little bit more because of the history and because it's an interstate matchup. But hey, I think UCF, at least first half into maybe 10 minutes into the second half, we got ourselves a game. I would guess Miami probably pulls out a little bit later, but hey, you never know in these week one, both teams from the same state, a little history of little brother beating big brother. Anything can happen.
Speaking of anything can happen, we got a really good one Friday night in Provo. Big time. This is an old Mountain West rivalry.
Kawhi versus Jimmer?
Jimmer versus Kawhi
Bring it back.
Leonard.
Alumni game.
Rush, they played last year. San Diego State team that went all the way to the national championship only beat BYU by 7. I kind of think BYU is going to win this game. I know everybody's going to fall in love with San Diego State coming off the great year last year, but I like BYU, man. I like BYU a lot in Provo on Friday night.
I like BYU as well. And if you see BYU win this game, next basketball episode we do, you'll see my old Jimmer Fredette jersey just happen to pop back on. I mean, this is a rivalry in basketball. Like, this is one of those where maybe there's not the most, I guess there's recent history to this, but hey, this is Provo. I mean, I was just out in San Diego. That's at sea level, below sea level. The elevation still applies in basketball as well. And a bunch of Mormons, Friday night, you think they're out drinking, going to the clubs? Hell no. They're going to be at the Marriott Center spreading the good gospel of BYU basketball and letting San Diego State know, hey, maybe we've been a little down in the past couple of years, but we're ready to go, especially against you guys. BYU money line is not a bad bet at all. A nice little sprinkle.
And this is somebody's first road game. These teams that hit the road for the first time in college basketball usually struggle. So I love BYU here. Troy, what were you going to add?
I was going to say, I know it's not the best competition, but you score 110 points in a 40-minute college basketball game. Your team has some serious ability to beat pretty much anyone. I mean, they could just boat race them if they really wanted to. I think. I mean, I don't know if there is even an over/under set yet, or like an estimated look ahead or anything like that.
I got it right here.
I would be looking at the over, I think.
We'll do guess the lines. I'll let Troy, you start with UCF and Miami. We'll go off Ken Palm's line right now because we know the books like to duplicate Ken Palm's lines over half the time. How many points do you think Miami will be favored by on Friday night?
I feel like because it's Ken Palm, it would be like almost 9.5 or 10.5 or something like that.
7. So
7.
I mean,
I was going to say 8.5.
This is projected. This is going to be projected a tight game. Go over to BYU, your Cougars, Rush. What do you think of BYU and San Diego State?
Say matchup. My guess it's going to be on that 2 to 3 possession line. I'm going to say 6.5.
BYU by 2.
BYU's favored by 2.
Yeah, according.
I thought I was being this great. Take the BYU money line. I just assuming they'd be an underdog. Oh, well, then that's definitely it.
And let me go over to Bart Torvik. That's the other one that does the projections. Just looking ahead to Friday night, UCF BYU by 1 on Bart Torvik, Miami by 8. So
that game might end up being even, or like BYU minus a half. And I think that makes sense. I was just going off it, but no, that does make more sense.
We're gonna bet the shit out of BYU on Friday night because if BYU's gonna come out laying a point or 2, even maybe 3, and the public is gonna come heavy on San Diego State because they just went to the national championship. So love BYU, just like I love Loyola Chicago here in a couple hours against FAU. You got to college basketball. Just doing the show with Colby every night. That is the number one sport to fade the public perception because every team's going to lose multiple games a year when you hit the road. It's hard to win on the road in college basketball. So, I mean, I can't wait. Looking ahead to the rest of the weekend, there's not really any big time games.
It's okay. We got football still.
Yeah. We got Houston A&M on Saturday. They snuck that thing in. Cincinnati, Eastern Washington on Sunday. Iowa State, Idaho State, the Bengals. Texas Tech has another one against San Jose State. That's a little bit of a tricky spot. Texas Tech got to watch out there. OK State bounce back against Sam Houston. That's not a gimme. That's going to be another hard game Sunday. At all. Yeah, so throw that on your side TV during NFL slate, 3:00 Eastern, and then Baylor against Gardner-Webb. Then we'll be back next week to recap all the action. So, guys, I mean, that was good to get a little basketball in there, man. I love college basketball.
Oh yeah,
it's such a great time of year. We got Maction tonight. We got college hoops. Friday night slate is absolutely fantastic outside the Big 12. A couple good Big 12 matchups that we're talking about, but you just look elsewhere. I mean, you got Duke and Arizona. You got Wisconsin, Tennessee. You got Texas A&M, Ohio State, Virginia, Florida, Memphis, Missouri, Virginia Tech, South Carolina, Wake, Georgia, Dayton, Northwestern, Clemson, UAB. And 90% of these are on actual campuses. So it's not this bullshit-ass NBA arena with 100 fans in it. So can't wait for Friday night. Rush, let's get out of here, but tell everybody where to find you and what we got going on.
At Rambling Rush, Twitter and Instagram. Also follow the Ryan and Rush Show for the more West Virginia side of things. We will be actually, we're bringing Troy on later today to discuss the Oklahoma West Virginia matchup. I know we did a little bit of that on this show, but
got to change shirts.
Yeah, got to change. Yeah, I got to probably change mine too. I don't need a bunch of fans freaking out like he's wearing red for this show. It's like, no, it's anyway. Yeah. But we'll put our Ryan and Rush spin on it. So definitely join us over there on the other side. But of course, appreciate you all's support. Can't wait for basketball season ahead and love this time of year. The good old intersection of the two best sports in the land.
I think just whoever the chat, that's a pretty good parlay. I think you would take the points with UCF and BYU on the money line.
Yep.
But I think adding a third or a fourth leg with those other Big 12 games, there's not really a bunch of value unless for some reason that Bellarmine and K-State game is looked at as being closer or something like that. But I think you could just roll a two-legger on Friday.
I agree with that.
Yeah. Two newcomers in the big games, baby. Let's go. Big 12.
I was going to say you can always find me over at the X, just at Troy Chewning, the full name. And, check us out on the West Virginia side here in a few minutes on the Ryan and Rush Show. We're going to dive into why Oklahoma is fucked.
Absolutely love it. You guys can find me at Moneyline_Mac. Always in the Discord. Hit me up. Twitter, X, whatever the hell you call it. Keep the energy, man, over at the College Basketball Experience. Great start to the season. Absolutely. Here every single night at midnight Eastern with me, Colby, Noah, Troy, and Rush will be on there throughout the year as well. Absolutely. And many others. It's gonna be a fun year, man. I can't wait. Can't wait for college football this weekend. Go check out the College Football Experience. And I think that's it, man. Good basketball episode. And let's get out of here. Go Mountaineers.
Go Mountaineers.